Would you like to make a beautiful pie for your family and friends with golden, flaky brown crust and filled with a juicy, yummy fruit filling, but you're intimidated because you don't know how to make pie crust? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome, my name is Lori, and I have made a ton of pies over the years. Today, I'm going to walk you through the process step by step. And the best part is, this crust is freezable, so it can be in your freezer for when you need it in the future. Stay tuned later in the video and I'll show you the best time to freeze it. So grab your apron and let's make pie crust. Here's the ingredients. You're going to need some all-purpose flour, some vegetable shortening, which I always use the butter flavor Crisco, little salt, an egg, and some white vinegar. Would you believe I made my first pie almost 50 years ago? I know, I can't believe it when I think about that. It was a cherry pie, which I made all by myself. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know any tips or tricks, and of course there was no internet. So I followed the recipe in the red and white checked cookbook, you know the one I'm talking about, as best I could. And I can still remember that pie. The bottom crust was so gummy and the top was tough, but I was so proud when my family ate that pie that night for dessert. Well, I have made a ton of pies since then and I've learned a whole lot. So I've got some tips and tricks to share with you today. I'm going to be sharing 4 tips to help you. Here's the first tip. Cold is an important part of pie crust. The flaky texture that we all like is from the shortening melting between the flour and causing steam. I always store my Crisco in the refrigerator, so mine is already cold. But if you don't, go ahead and measure yours out and then put it in your refrigerator for 30 minutes to an hour to make sure it's nice and chilled. We're also going to be using, instead of just plain tap water, we're going to use ice water. So make yourself a little glass of ice water and set it off to the side. Start by measuring the flour into a large bowl and adding your cold Crisco. Then we are going to cut the Crisco into the flour, which means we're going to work the Crisco into the flour. You can do this using 2 knives going opposite directions like this, or if you have a pastry blender, which looks like this, you can use this, which is my preferred method. I think a pastry blender is the easiest method. We're going to work this together until it looks like coarse sand. The next step is to take an egg in a cup or a small bowl and beat it. Beat it with a fork and pour it in with the Crisco and the flour mixture. Next, add the cold water, making sure you don't get any ice cubes, which I just did. Whoops. I'm going to get that out. The vinegar. And then on the salt, just kind of gently sprinkle that around different places. And then you're going to use a spoon to gently stir these ingredients together. And here's tip number 2. Don't overmix. Overmixing can result in a tough dough. Mix until just everything just comes together. If you like to get proven tips to help you in the kitchen, please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. This recipe will make 2 thicker crusts or 3 thin crusts. I prefer a thicker crust, so I've divided the dough in half. I've put each half on plastic wrap and used the plastic wrap to help form the dough into a disc. If you want to freeze the dough, this is the time to do it. Keep it in its plastic wrapper, put it in a Ziploc freezer bag and put it in your freezer. It's ready to go whenever you are. Just thaw it out in your refrigerator for about 2 hours or until the dough is rollable. And here's tip number 3. If you're making the pie crust today, then you want to chill your dough again a little bit more to get the Crisco nice and chilled so it makes those flaky layers. So put this in your refrigerator for about 30 minutes or your freezer about 15. That'll make those great flaky layers we all love. Plus it'll help the gluten develop. Well, right, we've chilled the dough and you'll be able to feel that it's firmed up some. So, of course, remove the plastic wrap and then lightly flour your pastry mat if you have one, or of course you can use the countertop. Just putting a tiny bit of flour on there. I'm also going to lightly flour my rolling pin. And I like to put just a tiny bit of flour on my disc of dough. I usually give it a couple of nice firm whacks just to get it going in the right direction. Pick it up, put a little flour, a little more flour. You'll get where you can feel how it's supposed to feel. And we're going to begin to roll out the dough. You're going to want to work from the middle out. Don't go back and forth like this, but gently work out always from the middle. I could tell that felt a little bit sticky, so I'm putting it back in here. And if you'll notice, when I'm doing this, I'm fixing these little cracks around the edge. And you're going to want to measure your pie plate ahead of time. You're going to want to make this dough. You're going to want your goal, of course, is to make a circle, but you're going to want to make the dough the width of the bottom of your pie pan plus the sides plus about 1 inch, because that 1 inch is what I'm going to show you how to make a really pretty edge to make your pie really pretty. So at this point, you can fold the dough in half like this, very carefully. And that looks a little sticky, so I'm gonna do that. This is my preferred method to do it. You could also put it over your rolling pin and ease it in. This is how I like to do it. Pick it up like this, gently put it into the pie plate and gently open it up. And once again, gently, ease it down in there. Put your fingers right in the edge and gently, right around that corner of the pie plate, and gently work it in, and then tap the top edges around like that. Do not stretch or pull it. At this point, if you wanted to, you could trim the excess crust from around the edge and use a fork to go around. But I'm going to show you a decorative edge you can do. Start by going around and folding under the crust all the way around. If you find that some of the crust doesn't want to stick together, you can use a tiny bit of water on the back of a finger and on the underneath side to make it stick. And don't worry if your crust is not perfectly symmetrical all the way around, because that's what gives it that homemade look. Okay, once I have it like this, I take my 2 index fingers and I go around and just make sure I have a really nice raised edge around here. All right, so I've been all the way around with that. The next thing you're going to do is in your left hand, take your thumb and your index finger. In your right hand, take your other index finger and just start pinching around like this, all the way around. And you can even come back and tighten those up a little bit if you think they look too loose. And this is going to give a beautiful edge to your pie crust. So if you've been keeping count, you know there's still one more tip to share. And here's tip number 4. Kitchen temperature makes a difference. If you're doing a lot of cooking or baking, or it took you a little bit longer to roll the pie dough out, then the temperature of your kitchen might have heated things up. So put this pie pan back in the refrigerator for 15 or 20 minutes because you want to make sure that shortening is nice and chilled so you'll get that flaky crust. I'm going to go ahead and bake my pie crust because I'm going to be making a coconut cream pie. So pierce the bottom of the crust multiple times with a fork. Also come around the sides. Don't do your pretty edge, but just do the sides. And then bake this for, at 425, probably 10, 12 minutes until it's nice and golden brown. If you wanted to make a fruit pie, then use your other crust, roll it out, put it on top, flute around the edge the same way. So now that you know how to make pie crust, you can make all kinds of great pies. Check out my recipe, especially for chicken pot pie. It's the same yummy, delicious, flaky, golden brown crust. It covers chicken and creamy vegetables in a creamy sauce. It's the perfect comfort food. And the great thing about it is it's freezer friendly. So check out the video.